Good morning, everybody. My name is Bruno Casella, and I'm a senior economist at UNCTAD, the division of investment and enterprise, where our core expertise is, in fact, international investment and global value chains. First, let me thank Anima for inviting me here to discuss to share our views on the transformation of global value chains in a pandemic world. And let me start with I think it's always good to start with a sort of bold statement, my bold statement is that in global value chains, we will likely be in a pandemic world, at least for another 10 years. And that, of course, doesn't mean that the pandemic will stay with us for 10 years. Our shared hope is that we will be able to win this terrible enemy within 1 or 2 years, and then probably for another 1 or 2 years, COVID will be some sort of ghost sitting next to us every time as we try to recover the global economy from the damages caused by COVID. But what I'm claiming here is that even beyond the outbreak of the COVID and beyond the recovery phase in the immediate aftermath from the COVID, in the lessons learned, and in some sense even the scratches that the COVID has left behind will stay with us for 5 to 10 years in the longer term. The legacy of COVID in everything, and especially in global value chains, will be much longer than the COVID itself. So what I push you to think when we think in terms of what could be the impact of COVID on global value chains, trade and investment, we need to think about it in 2 moments. So there will be a first moment that is now and the next 2 years, the COVID and the recovery from COVID. So this is a short to medium term, but then there is a medium to long term at 5 to 10 years, which is what will be the long-term consequences of COVID on trade, investment, and global value chains. So also my presentation will be structured in these 2 moments. In the first moment, I will show you what is happening right now to global value chain, and in particular to international investment. And then I will also be able to show you some numbers and some forecasts of how things are going and are expected to go in the next 2 years. And then a second part where we need to abandon the numbers, because there is no way we can forecast in this moment at 5 to 10 years, but where we will be able to do some speculation on how we expect to be the world of global value chain 5 to 10 years from now. These 2 components of my presentation are actually taken from the World Investment Report, which is our annual publication, as you see in the cover of my presentation. And then there will be, I mentioned that there will be a third moment, which is just after this presentation, where in addition to answering your question on this material, based on this material and based on your insiders' experience, I would like together to draw the implication on GVC in the MENA region. So this presentation will be about global trends, and then hopefully we will be able to bridge the global trend within the more local environment of the MENA region, and to do this together. So I start right away showing you what we expect in the next couple of years. So this is the picture of international investment right now and the forecast for the next couple of years. So the green line is the trend in foreign direct investment, in global foreign direct investment. And I would like to draw your attention on two things. So the first one is the collapse in foreign direct investment following the pandemics. So this is a forecast, and we expect foreign direct investment between 2020 and 2021 to decline by 40–50%. So you see that the lowest point after the pandemic is around 50% lower than the value in 2019. And we don't expect any rebound before 2022. So 2020 will be we see a very strong decline. We will have another decline, even more moderate, in 2021, and the first rebound in 2022. So the collapse that we expect in international investment in global value chains in the next couple of years is the result of powerful and disruptive factors that are taking place both on the supply side and on the demand side as a consequence of COVID. So the lockdown has generated an interruption, is generating, because it's still going on, an interruption of investment project, a delay, a cancellation of investment project. On the demand side, the global economy is in recession, and we know that during recession or stagnation, companies, even if they have funding to invest, they don't. They rather wait and see to assess what's going to happen. So supply side, demand side, the combination of the two is the explosive mix that is expected to generate a collapse in foreign direct investment. One thing to mind is the following. This is a forecast that we produced in June. Actually, in January this year, we were able to see the first actual data for 2020, and they reflect, they report a fall in FDI by 40%. So the green forecast that we had in June are confirmed by the preliminary data. So this seems actually the reality that we are living in. But there is a second very, very important element that this picture tells us. Look what happened before 2019. And if you look before 2019, between 2015 and 2019, you see that international investment was not doing well even before. In 2015, FDI were at 2 trillion. And by 2019, before the COVID, they had already lost 40%. This is a very, very important point, because it shows that the pandemic struck in international investment environment, GVC environment, that was already challenged by something else, by something that was pre-existing the pandemic. So the pandemic is actually acting as an accelerator. And this is important because while thinking at the long-term effect of the pandemic and prospect for FDI, we need to think about the consequences of the pandemic on FDI, but we should not forget that there are other things that are actually taking place and that have been taking place since a decade. We will discuss these other factors in the following chart that will prepare, in some sense, we bridge the short-term and the long-term perspective. So this chart gives you a sort of conceptual framework of what is going on in the world of global value chains. There were already some disruptive trends that we say that arrive at the boiling point exactly when the pandemic was striking. And what are these trends? Three trends, essentially. Technological trends, so the digitalization. And the consequence of digitalization on global value chain is that it changed the economics of international production. For example, changing the benefits that may derive by labor cost differentials. Maybe automation makes offshoring labor not so convenient as before anymore. The second element is rising protectionist tendencies. So a sort of political pressures to bring back, to deglobalize the economy. The third element is the sustainability imperative that also introduces new rules even constraints in the global economy. So these three big trends were pre-existing the COVID, and then the COVID is striking with big consequences on global investment. So as a consequence of this overall picture of pre-existing trends and the COVID, we can expect the world of global value chain international investment to be very different from now in 10 years. We still don't know how it's gonna be, but we can already envisage 4 trajectories that may materialize as a consequence of the factors that we have just seen. So the 4 trajectories are reshoring. This is the big fear for the global economy. It means bringing back production. It could be a consequence of what? Of automation, making less convenient to produce abroad because of the robots. It could be a consequence of protectionist pressure. It could be the consequence of the localization trends resulting from sustainability. It can be the consequence of the will of multinational enterprises to bring production closer to minimize the risks. So it could be related to sort of cash for resilience by multinational companies. So reshoring is the first. The second is almost the opposite. Is digitalization. Digitalization will allow companies to push even further in the globalization, because it will give the tools to better control global value chains, to minimize risk, to coordinate, and to monitor activities along the value chains. So these are almost 2 dichotomic scenarios. Then we have a third scenario, which is regionalization. Is the idea to switch from global to regional in the global value chain world. This is very much pushed by a political a political tendency. We see that there is a very strong consolidation of regional bloc. We see regional agreements. So this can be conducive to a regional shift in global value chain. It also addresses the case for resilience, for localization, and for sustainability of global value chain. So this is a very likely scenario for the future. And the last one is distributed manufacturing. Is the idea that we can replicate production in many different locations, even through a central coordination. So this is the scenario that is implied, for example, by 3D printing and distributed manufacturing. This is a very, very fascinating scenario because it would address a lot of issues, of current issues of global value chains, but it has some, at the moment, some technological constraints in the sense that the needed technology like 3D printing can be applied just to a niche of activities. So reshoring, digitalization, regionalization, and distributed manufacturing, in our view, are the very likely scenarios for global value chain in 5 to 10 years. And I would like to conclude with this and then discuss what are the implications of these trajectories on global value chain across the MENA region with you. Thank you very much.